Imagine a time when the Earth was plunged into darkness, the sun's light shrouded by the fury of a cataclysmic event, a volcanic eruption so immense it almost wiped out humanity. This was no ordinary eruption. It was the eruption of Mount Toba, a supervolcano on the island of Sumatra, Indonesia, around 74,000 years ago. But the real shock? Scientists now believe that only 1,000 humans survived this apocalyptic event. Just 1,000. How could a species so advanced, with its rudimentary tools, intricate knowledge of fire, and early steps towards communication, be reduced to such small numbers? What happened to the rest of humanity? Did they vanish into the ash, or did they hide in caves, waiting for the world to change? Was this the true beginning of human evolution? And could the survivors of this disaster have shaped the very DNA that lives on in us today? In this video, we will uncover the terrifying power of the Toba eruption, a disaster so immense it could have changed the course of human history forever. From the immediate effects of the eruption to its long-lasting impact on the planet's climate, we will explore the global catastrophe that almost erased humanity. Prepare yourself for a journey into one of the most critical moments in human history, one where survival, against all odds, changed the path of evolution and forever altered the future of humankind.
The Toba eruption, estimated to be 2,800 times larger than the eruption of Mount St. Helens, marked one of the most catastrophic natural events in Earth's history. But what does this disaster tell us about the human experience? To understand the scale of what happened, we need to look at the Toba eruption's effects and the scientific theories surrounding it. The eruption's devastating power. Around 74,000 years ago, Mount Toba erupted in a cataclysmic explosion that released an enormous volume of ash and gases into the atmosphere. The eruption sent plumes of ash 25 miles into the sky, blanketing the Earth with a thick veil of volcanic debris. For months, if not years, the planet's atmosphere was choked with ash and sulfur dioxide, blocking the sun's light and causing a global volcanic winter. This volcanic winter led to a significant cooling of the Earth's climate, with average global temperatures dropping by as much as 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, or 5 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit. But the effects didn't end there. With the sunlight blocked, the planet's growing season was disrupted. Agriculture was impossible, and plant life, along with the herbivores that depended on it, began to die. The very fabric of ecosystems began to unravel. For early humans, this was an extinction-level event. With food scarce, the human population shrank dramatically. Genetic evidence suggests that only a small group of humans, perhaps as few as 1,000, managed to survive the ensuing ice age. The rest of humanity may have been wiped out by the climate catastrophe, as well as the accompanying challenges of disease and starvation. The genetic bottleneck theory. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Toba eruption is its genetic legacy. Geneticists have found that modern humans, Homo sapiens, carry evidence of what is known as a genetic bottleneck. This refers to a sharp reduction in the size of a population due to environmental catastrophe. The Toba eruption may have triggered this bottleneck, causing a dramatic drop in genetic diversity among early human populations. Scientists hypothesize that the surviving 1,000 humans were the key contributors to the gene pool that eventually led to the world's population as we know it today. Interestingly, fossil and archaeological records from the time show that this bottleneck period didn't just affect Homo sapiens. Neanderthals and other hominins, such as the Denisovans, were also deeply impacted by the eruption's consequences. Some scientists suggest that Homo sapiens survived largely because of their cognitive abilities and social structures, which allowed them to adapt to the harsh conditions better than other hominin species. The climate crisis and human evolution. While we often think of climate change as a modern phenomenon, the Toba catastrophe reminds us that humans have faced dramatic shifts in climate before. The effects of the eruption may have lasted thousands of years, forcing humans to evolve rapidly in response to the harsh conditions. These early survivors likely adapted to their new, colder world, developing new tools, hunting strategies, and social behaviors to cope with the environmental changes. Sites and evidence. Archaeological evidence of this period is sparse, but there are key sites that give us clues about how early humans coped with the aftermath of Toba's eruption. In the southern Arabic Peninsula, ancient tools and cut marks on bones suggest that humans were living in isolated groups, relying on sophisticated survival strategies. Fossils found in East Africa show signs of genetic adaptation to cold climates, and tools recovered from caves in South Asia hint at how humans might have used shelter and fire to endure the harsh environment. The most profound evidence, however, may lie in our DNA. Modern humans carry remnants of this ancient population bottleneck in their mitochondrial DNA, which shows a significant decrease in genetic diversity around 74,000 years ago. This data suggests that at some point, humanity came perilously close to extinction.
The Toba disaster marks an unforgettable chapter in our evolution, a time when survival against unimaginable odds set the course for the future of humanity. To understand the gravity of this event, we must delve deeper into how these survivors, only 1,000 strong, managed to endure and shape the world as we know it today. The aftermath of Toba, a struggle for survival. Imagine the scene after the eruption. The once thriving landscapes of Africa, Europe, and Asia were transformed into frozen wastelands, where the sun's rays barely pierced the thick layers of ash. For early humans, this was an apocalyptic world, where survival meant adapting to a new and unforgiving reality. The skies remained overcast for years, disrupting the growth of plants and plunging the earth into a global winter. In this harsh world, human tribes scattered across distant regions. They hunted and gathered what little they could, living in caves or rudimentary shelters. The few remaining food sources were constantly under threat from cold weather and predators, with large herds of megafauna, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths beginning to disappear. Life was no longer about thriving, it was about surviving. The real question was, how did these isolated groups of early humans manage to endure? The role of adaptation and social bonds. One of the most significant factors in the survival of the 1,000 humans was their ability to adapt. While many species fell into extinction due to the changing environment, humans, being highly adaptable, were able to rely on their social intelligence and ability to innovate. They used fire to stay warm, invented new tools for hunting, and most importantly, came together in small, tight-knit groups that ensured cooperation and mutual support in the face of adversity. The human capacity to think abstractly and plan ahead might have been one of the deciding factors in their survival. In a time when resources were scarce, it is likely that these survivors used advanced social cooperation to share food, protect each other from predators, and create strategies for survival. This teamwork likely gave early humans the edge over other species whose survival relied more on individual strength. As humans began to adapt to the cold, their physical and mental traits evolved to meet the challenges of their environment. Body proportions, for example, may have shifted over time. Thicker body builds and shorter limbs to conserve heat, much like the adaptations seen in modern Arctic populations.
Meanwhile, technological advances in hunting, such as the development of specialized tools, would have made all the difference in securing food. The global bottleneck that didn't just affect immediate survival, it had long-term consequences on the genetic makeup of our species. With only a few thousand humans left, the genetic diversity of Homo sapiens was severely limited. This period of genetic contraction likely shaped many of the traits that are common to all humans today. The survivors of Toba, isolated from one another and scattered across the planet, would have interbred within their small groups. Over time, this genetic bottleneck led to a shared ancestry across the human population, a genetic thread that still binds us today. Evidence of this bottleneck can be found in the fact that all humans on Earth share a common mitochondrial ancestor, often referred to as mitochondrial Eve, who lived around the time of the eruption. This genetic bottleneck might have also led to reduced genetic diversity within early human populations, limiting the ability of humans to evolve rapidly in response to new environmental pressures. Yet, as we will see, the bottleneck didn't necessarily mean the end of human evolution. Rather, it might have set the stage for the explosion of human culture and innovation that followed in the thousands of years after the eruption. The survivors, a fragile line between extinction and evolution. In the aftermath of the Toba eruption, the 1,000 humans who survived were more than just the remnants of a failed species. They were the progenitors of every living human on Earth today. Their survival wasn't the end of humanity's story, it was just the beginning. These survivors would eventually spread out of Africa, interacting with other hominin species like Neanderthals and Denisovans, further shaping human evolution. But the Toba catastrophe represents a critical moment in time when survival against impossible odds determined the path humanity would take. The disaster forced early humans to become more resilient, more innovative, and more connected than ever before. And as we know from history, it's these very traits that would eventually allow humans to dominate the Earth and venture beyond its borders. The survivors of Toba may have lived in a world of ice and ash, but they carried the spark of a new dawn, one where human civilization would rise from the ashes of catastrophe.
The survivors of the Toba eruption faced an unimaginable struggle for survival, but their resilience sparked a deeper evolutionary change that would ultimately shape the future of humanity. However, the aftermath of Toba wasn't simply a tale of survival. It was a story of interbreeding, evolutionary crossroads, and mysteries left unsolved. A complex web of genetic interaction that has been slowly unraveled by modern science. The debate: did Toba really cause a global catastrophe? While the Toba eruption is widely accepted as a significant event in human history, some researchers still debate the scale of its impact. The scientific community has split between those who argue that the eruption created a global disaster and those who believe that the genetic bottleneck attributed to Toba could have occurred due to other environmental factors, such as climate change, disease, or even overhunting. Dr. Michael Petraglia, a prominent anthropologist, notes that while the eruption's climatic consequences were certainly severe, other factors, such as a natural climate shift around the same time, may have contributed to the near extinction of early human populations. For some scientists, the volcanic winter theory doesn't fully explain why human populations were reduced to only 1,000 individuals, especially since other species managed to survive the same climate disruptions. Others, however, point to the genetic evidence, which strongly supports the volcanic winter theory. Genetic bottleneck markers, such as reduced mitochondrial diversity, all point to a rapid, drastic reduction in the human gene pool. This aligns with the timing of the Toba eruption, suggesting that the survivors were the result of a severe environmental crisis, not just a gradual population decline. Interactions with Neanderthals and Denisovans. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Toba disaster is the role it may have played in the evolutionary crossroads between Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans. Early Homo sapiens were not alone on Earth. Neanderthals, who lived across Europe and parts of Asia, and Denisovans, a mysterious species whose remains were first discovered in Siberia, coexisted with humans for thousands of years. Some scientists believe that after the Toba eruption, humans faced not only the challenges of survival, but also the opportunity to interact with other hominins. The small population of surviving Homo sapiens likely encountered Neanderthals and Denisovans, and evidence suggests that interbreeding between these species occurred, leaving genetic traces that remain in the DNA of modern humans today. In fact, recent genetic studies have shown that all humans of non-African descent carry Neanderthal DNA, and some populations also carry Denisovan DNA, suggesting that these species did not disappear entirely, but merged with the ancestors of modern humans. This genetic inheritance may have helped Homo sapiens adapt to harsh environments, possibly passing on traits that aided survival, such as better cold tolerance or immune system resilience. A new dawn for human culture. After the bottleneck, as the Earth slowly began to recover from the eruption's effects, humans faced new challenges, but they also began to develop new tools, strategies, and social structures. This period, though marked by struggle, also set the stage for a cultural explosion that would give rise to art, language, and complex societies. Evidence of this cultural revolution can be seen in the archaeological record. Around 50,000 years ago, just a few millennia after the Toba eruption, humans began creating cave paintings, ritual objects, and burial practices, signifying a leap in cognitive and cultural development. This era also saw the first migrations out of Africa, as humans spread to new continents, encountering and sometimes interbreeding with other hominin species. The survivors of Toba had been shaped by the disaster, but in the aftermath, they began to adapt in ways that would set the course for all future generations. Their ingenuity, cooperation, and determination allowed them to evolve from isolated groups into a species that would eventually dominate the planet, the same species that would build civilizations, write history, and reach the stars. The legacy of the Toba disaster. The story of the Toba eruption is one of survival, adaptation, and evolution, but it's also a story about our connection to the past. The 1,000 humans who survived the Toba disaster are, in a very real way, the ancestors of every single person alive today. They carried within them the seeds of humanity's future, seeds that would grow into societies, cultures, and technologies we can only dream of. Yet, despite their survival, the Toba catastrophe left unanswered questions. How did these humans manage to find enough food? What survival strategies did they use to avoid extinction? And perhaps most intriguingly, what wisdom did the survivors of Toba possess that could help us understand the challenges we face today? As we dig deeper into human history, we must remember that we are the heirs of these ancient survivors, carrying their legacy within us. The Toba eruption may have nearly wiped out humanity, but the survivors shaped the future of the species, forging the path we now walk.
The story of the Toba eruption is not just a tale of ancient survival, it is a mirror to our own times, offering profound lessons on resilience, adaptation, and the fragility of human existence. While we live in a world vastly different from the one faced by our ancient ancestors, the challenges we face today, be it environmental crises, political upheaval, or societal collapse, are not so different from those that confronted humanity at the dawn of its existence. Lessons in resilience. When the Toba disaster struck, it did not just challenge the survival of a species, it reshaped the very foundation of human resilience. The 1,000 survivors were not just lucky, they were resourceful, adaptable, and capable of surviving under the harshest conditions. They survived by learning to work together, share resources, and adapt quickly to their environment. In a world where food was scarce, their ability to find new ways to survive made all the difference. Today, we face challenges of our own. Climate change, environmental degradation, and natural disasters are becoming more frequent and severe. Like our ancient ancestors, we must ask ourselves, how do we adapt? How can we learn to survive in an increasingly unpredictable world? The story of the Toba survivors encourages us to build resilience not only in our communities, but within ourselves. Whether it's developing better survival strategies, strengthening our social bonds, or embracing change, the Toba catastrophe shows us that resilience is not just about physical survival, but about our capacity to innovate, cooperate, and evolve. The power of cooperation. One of the key factors in the survival of the 1,000 humans was their ability to cooperate and work together. In an environment where food and shelter were scarce, those who survived likely formed tight-knit communities, groups of individuals who shared resources, looked out for each other, and worked together to overcome obstacles. This was not just a matter of physical survival. It was about creating a shared vision of life, one that valued mutual support and collective action. In our modern world, we often take cooperation for granted. But the Toba disaster reminds us that in times of crisis, the strength of our social connections and our ability to work together could mean the difference between survival and extinction. Whether we are confronting global pandemics, economic instability, or political strife, cooperation is more important than ever. We must ask ourselves, are we as willing to work together as our ancestors were? Adaptation. Evolution in real time. The survivors of Toba didn't just endure, they adapted. They learned to deal with extreme cold, scarcity of food, and a dramatic shift in the climate. This adaptation is the very essence of human evolution, the ability to modify our behavior and strategies in response to changing conditions. This principle is just as relevant today. With the rapid pace of technological change and the growing threat of climate change, we must be adaptive to the shifting world around us. The survivors of Toba did not wait for the world to change back to the way it was. They embraced the new reality and evolved with it. In our own lives, this means being willing to change our ways of thinking, working, and living to meet the challenges of today. The future will not be shaped by those who resist change, but by those who embrace it. The fragility of human existence. Perhaps the most profound lesson we can draw from the Toba catastrophe is the fragility of human existence. Just 1,000 individuals survived out of a population that once numbered in the thousands or possibly millions. A single volcanic eruption, one event, nearly brought the entire human species to extinction. In a sense, this serves as a stark reminder that humanity is always on the edge. We are part of a fragile ecosystem, and while our achievements are impressive, they can be easily undone by forces beyond our control. This realization should not lead us to despair, but to humility and awareness. The world around us is not as predictable or stable as we often believe. We must be mindful of the impact we have on our planet and the forces, whether natural or human-made, that could shape our future. Just as the survivors of Toba adapted and persevered, we must learn to live in harmony with nature, respect our environment, and prepare for the unexpected. A reflection on our origins. In the end, the story of the Toba eruption is also a reflection on where we came from. The 1,000 survivors who lived through one of the most catastrophic events in history are the direct ancestors of every single human alive today. Every modern human carries within them a trace of these ancient survivors, a shared history that connects us across time. As we confront the challenges of the modern world, we can look to our ancestors for inspiration. Their story is not just of struggle, but of survival, ingenuity, and perseverance. And as we face our own uncertainties, we can take comfort in the fact that we too carry the legacy of those who faced disaster and overcame it. The human spirit has always found a way to endure, and it will continue to do so.
The Toba eruption stands as one of the most pivotal moments in the history of our species. It was a time when only 1,000 humans survived a global catastrophe, a near-extinction event that could have wiped out humanity forever. Yet, from this tiny remnant, the legacy of humanity was born anew. In this video, we've explored the disaster's shocking effects, the evolutionary consequences,
and the survival strategies that allowed these humans to overcome one of the greatest challenges ever faced by any species. We've seen how the survivors of Toba reshaped the course of human evolution, leaving us with a legacy of resilience, cooperation, and the ability to adapt to a changing world. As we look to our future, we cannot help but reflect on the lessons learned from the Toba catastrophe. Just as our ancient ancestors faced their darkest days, we too face our own challenges, whether from climate change, technological upheaval, or other global crises. The story of the survivors of Toba reminds us that survival is not just about physical endurance, but about our capacity to work together, adapt, and change. It is about embracing the unknown and finding a way forward, no matter how daunting the path ahead. But we must also ask ourselves, are we prepared for the unexpected? Do we, as a species, have the resilience to face another disaster of this magnitude? And, most importantly, what lessons can we draw from the past to ensure that we do not repeat the same mistakes that brought humanity to the brink of extinction in the first place? The survivors of Toba were not just lucky. They were resourceful, determined, and, above all, united in their struggle for survival. They were the ancestors of everyone who has come since. As we move forward, it's crucial to remember that we too are connected to them, and their spirit lives on in each of us. We are the inheritors of their resilience. And now, the question is, what will we do with it? Call to action. If you've learned something from this remarkable tale of survival, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any future journeys into the mysteries of our past. Share this video with others and leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think we can learn from the survivors of Toba?